Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of Seeker TV. This is video 1, and today we're going to be talking about science. And specifically, we're going to be asking the question, where did we come from? Now, there's several ways to answer this question. There's the historical narratives. So, as you know, throughout most of history, until just within the last couple of centuries, the answer was, well, we were created. Every culture around the world, throughout all of history, has had this answer. We were created by God or gods, plural. And so this is the historical narrative. Now, there's a modern scientific narrative, right? And it comes from people who say, all right, you know what? We cannot just have someone tell us where we came from. We have to find out ourselves, right? So, scientists today want to try to piece together where we came from. And as you know, they've come up with a long geological time scale of millions and billions of years of human and Earth history, the theory of evolution, and they've formed what is today a scientific narrative about where we've come from. Now, probably you and I are not scientists. I'm not a scientist. Most of you out there are not going to be scientists and are not scientists now. And so we're really in the position of listening to what the scientists tell us about this modern narrative. And with some of us it strikes a chord, it seems to explain a lot. And really that's why, some of us accept it. And I'm going to get to my own personal view on these things in a while, so that's not an endorsement, I'm just talking here. So, you've got the explanatory power. Now there's really two ways to go about addressing this subject, and we kind of touched on it already. So one, we can, have somebody tell us where we've come from, and two, we can try to find out ourselves. Alright, so let's move on. With these narratives, there's some philosophical assumptions. And, whether you believe the modern scientific narrative or not, it's at least good to be familiar with what the assumptions are so that you can accurately analyze the view. So, the main philosophical assumption underlying the modern scientific narrative of human origins is called uniformitarianism. And I failed to do this before I started recording, so I'm just going to do it now. I wanted to find a formal definition of uniformitarianism for you all. And I looked in my Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy, and it didn't have it. So I'm just going to Google it real quick and see if I can pull up a quick definition of it for you. Alright, I've got a simple definition here from thefreedictionary.com, and it says, uniformitarianism, the theory that all geologic phenomena may be explained as a result of existing forces having operated uniformly from the origin of the Earth to the present time. Alright, in the geological sciences it goes on to elaborate the concept that the Earth's surface was shaped in the past by gradual processes such as erosion and by small sudden changes such as earthquakes of the type acting today, rather than by the sudden divine acts such as the flood survived by Noah, demanded by the doctrine of catastrophism. Alright, so, simply put, uniformitarianism is the idea that, the same processes we see happening today are those processes which have always occurred since the origin of the Earth, or the formation of the Earth. And so, geologists take this to mean that, for example, take plate tectonics, right? Where you have the plates of the Earth's crust, and, scientists today can measure them moving apart, moving past one another, along fault lines and such. And they're doing that at a certain rate. And so they measure this rate, and then, they take that rate and they impose it into the past to get an idea of, where, the continents were at any given time. And that's the idea. Okay, so it's the idea that you can take the rate of measurements today and impose them into the past. Why? Because everything has always been pretty much uniform. And this is called uniformitarianism. And it's the assumption that underlies the modern scientists, the modern sciences. My main goal is simply to identify the assumption, and then, I don't want to shove anything, onto you guys out there. We're all going to have our opinions about that. I have my opinion about that, and I can share that with you if you'd like to hear. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And my opinion about that simply is that that's a huge assumption. And especially, if we suppose the kind of time frame which the scientists present nowadays, that's a long time. And over a period of time like that, to think that everything has simply been, uniform, and the rates of change, whether it's geologic, radioactive in rocks, even biological change, for example, DNA dating and things like this. I think that's a huge assumption, and I think it's really the weakness of the modern science's explanation for the origin of humanity, the origin of the Earth and the universe. So here we are, at the end of history, so to speak, and we're looking back and we're making this huge assumption because we, as human beings, as a society, and as a global society, we really want an explanation. We really want to have some sort of answers for this, because if we don't have the answers, then we're left with kind of a void there, and we don't know what to think about that. And a lot of people have been unsatisfied with the answers coming from religions, so they want a replacement. And then again, you have agnostics who simply withhold judgment. So my opinion about uniformitarianism is that it's a huge assumption, and it's one that, frankly, I'm not willing to make. So if I were not a Christian, I think at this point I would have to be an agnostic regarding our origins, because that's just too big of a leap for me to make. So there you have it. What is the alternative to uniformitarianism? Catastrophism. Catastrophism is the idea that there have been some major catastrophes in the past. Now, we were talking about the historical narratives before, and the major historical part of the historical narrative, a major characteristic of all ancient historic narratives about our origins, include legends about a flood. And now, so this is not something coming from, strictly Christianity or something like that. I know a lot of times, for those of you in the university, you can relate to what I'm saying. Someone brings up the global flood, and immediately, they're mocked or called, a Christian fundamentalist or something like that. But really, a person need not have any background with Christianity to believe in the flood. All that one would need to have is a familiarity with the stories from ancient civilizations all over the world, which uniformly, and here's an instance where we can use that word appropriately, they uniformly, have this story in their history. So, why is that? I mean, is that just a coincidence? Is that from an earlier myth that after the migration of human beings to different areas in the earth, just formed or something like that? Well, what we can say is that it's part of the history of every civilization on Earth, pretty much, if not all, then most. So again, you need not be a Christian to believe in it.